it is. Okay? And so what you have to know is that the real trick and the riddle when it comes to banks and foreclosures are just as easy to resolve as the income tax when you know what you're doing. What you have to understand is that from the beginning, you were trying to acquire a house, and you were going to use what as the source of funds to pay for that house? Your asset account. That is the only source of funds, at least for right now in the world, unless they change the system. Now, since it was going back to your asset account, you probably had no clue that you were actually financing the purchase of a house, which is going to be owned by who? You or the straw man? Straw man. Because you, living man or woman, are the secured party creditor, and you've learned this weekend that you what? Can own nothing. Okay? So, you as a generous supplier of the funds, you are a private banker, we're going to loan the money to your straw man to acquire a house. The money you were going to loan him came out of your asset account. After you loaned it to your straw man, what you should have done is what? Put a security lien on the house your straw man owned, right? So you are either the creditor over the assets in your asset account, or you're the secured party creditor over a lien on the assets owned by your straw man. So have you lost anything by loaning to your straw man? It's still even. You either have your assets in your asset account, or you have a lien on material assets your straw man owns in the world. Now, whether it's going to be you that lien it, or you're going to lien it through one of your front organizations, that's when it goes to block 3. How do you protect yourself? By surrounding yourself by trusts, LLC, PIFs, foundations, whatever it is. Okay? But in essence, everything in this world is an illusion. There's nothing there. All it is accounting and paperwork, and then possession in the real world to take care of what it is that you've set up. So, you went to this bank, i.e. public, like Chase, because you didn't even understand you had the asset account that you could give benefits to your straw man to acquire this home, right? So you went to Chase because Chase knew more than you do. And Chase asked you for your SOC number, didn't they? Because without the SOC number, they can't go to that asset account. So what they did is they made sure you were a member of the system. And your membership number was your SOC number. And so they go, yep, that guy's got an account up there. We don't know why he just doesn't go use it himself, but if he's dumber in a post and he comes through us, we'll help him out. So Chase goes through some magic and mystery. Oh, we don't know if we can loan you your own money. We don't know if we should. This is really a tight economy. Please sign 150 documents and we'll run it through our review committee. Yeah, we finally decided you're dumber in a post, so you get to get your money. Okay? So then they have you fill out the note. What is the note? That is the money order to go get your money through Chase as your agent. You get that? So, when you made out the note to Chase, it was pay to the order of Chase $500,000. There was a security number on this document to keep track of it. There was a date. There was your name and address, because you're basically the drawer on this instrument, right? So every one of these instruments has at least 4 parties that are playing on this instrument. You got the drawer. He's the guy that's making the demand for the money. You have the drawee. The drawee is the bank that has the units in that the drawer is drawing on. You have the beneficiary. That's the party that's going to receive the units that you're drawing. And finally, there's the endorsee or endorsor on the back of the instrument. And under the Uniform Commercial Code, doesn't it tell you that the endorser is the one who's primarily liable on the transaction, which is the extraction of the units from your asset account, and you're delivering it to the beneficiary, which is Chase Manhattan Bank in our example. Now, why did you go to Chase to begin with? Didn't you go to Chase because Chase promised to deliver some funds to the seller of the property? Yes. And whose funds are they? They're your funds. Are they Chase's funds? No, they're your funds. So even though Chase is the beneficiary on the note, isn't Chase really the transmitting utility or the conduit to move your funds from your asset account through Chase to the seller of the property to make him happy? Isn't that what's really going on? If you understood what was happening?
Like a voucher?
Okay? Yeah. It's like you're hiring Chase to go down with their armored vehicle and pick up the gold at the DTC or the FRB and truck it on over to the seller and hand it to them. And in return, the seller's going to give you the deed or the release of title on the property you're buying. So Chase is going to bring it back and give it to you, and the transaction's done. Do you owe Chase any money? No. They just were your agent to transmit your funds. Who is the drawee on this instrument, this note that you made out? Well, your account is with Treasury, right? And why is your account with Treasury? Because the Secretary of Treasury is the alien property custodian. What the hell is that? Well, who is the alien? The living man or woman is the alien. We learned that yesterday, remember? Brandon was telling us that if you're not the U.S. citizen, you're the alien. Who's the U.S. citizen in this transaction? The straw man, okay? But it's not even the straw man's account per se, because it's on the asset side, so it belongs to the secured party creditor for that account, okay? So who is the drawee, the bank? Well, it's the Secretary of Treasury, Department of Treasury, District of Columbia, in his capacity as the alien property custodian, because he is your banker and he is helping you perfect and secure your account. It's your account. He's just a trustee. You're the beneficiary of that account. And as the trustee, you've asked him to allow access to that account. And so, in reality, isn't the drawee, in essence, a kind of agent for you? So if you look at the note that you signed with the bank to buy your house, you're the drawer. The drawer, the guy that signs in the lower right, what is his title when he signs? Authorized representative. Who authorized him and who is he representing? Is he representing the straw man debtor? No. He's representing the straw man creditor. And therefore, he has the authority with his signature to authorize the transfer of these funds. And the drawee bank is his agent. Remember, in banking law, if you're the customer and you make a deposit, as far as the bank is concerned, when you've made the deposit, they can treat that deposit both as a liability and as an asset, can't they? It's an asset to the bank, but it's also a liability because they have a fiduciary duty to return the funds back to the depositor, who is a creditor, right?
Hi, this is Bezel Bay, and today you'll be enjoying Wtdta Radio, where we'll be exploring the world of accounting, current expected credit loss provisions, estate planning, and tax planning, just to name a few. Don't forget, in the evening session, we'll be definitely going into civics and syntactical trust. So remember, if you listen long enough, you will definitely learn something. Peace and love, family. Peace and love.
So when you're signing the note to Chase Manhattan to move funds from your asset account, you are signing that, and the drawee bank has an obligation to the drawer to return the funds, because the drawer is a creditor to the drawee bank. So the drawee bank is your agent. It's your account, in essence. They're controlling it as a trustee, but it's your account in terms of at least pulling the equity out. So look at what's going on in this note. There is, on the front, which is the public side, there is the drawee, the beneficiary, and the drawer. You signed as the drawer. The beneficiary is your agent to take the units of currency from the asset account to the seller for you. And the drawee is your agent to produce those funds. So who is the real party of interest on the front of this instrument? It's you, and you. Now we go to the back side of the instrument, which is the private side. If you want to cash an instrument at a bank, let's use the metaphor, your straw man has got an open checking account, okay? You're going to go out on the town for the evening, and you know where you're going to go. They're not going to take a credit card. You need FRNs. They're not going to take a check. So during the day, you go to your own straw man's bank to actually cash your check for some FRNs so you can go out and party for the evening. You get to the bank, and you got your check. You sign it as the drawer. The drawee is the bank that you're at that holds the checking account, that has a duty to the depositor, if there's sufficient units on deposit, to return his funds. Who is the beneficiary going to be? You're looking for cash. You can make it out to the bank. You can make it out to cash. You can make it out to the straw man's name. Or you can make it out to bearer. Makes no never mind. And you take it up to the counter, and the little girl says, "What would you like, sir?" "Oh, I want to cash this out." She takes a look at the instrument on the front. She turns it over on the back and goes, "Oops, what's missing?" There's no endorsement. She says, "Sir, you'll have to endorse this, or I cannot cash it for you." How many people in this room endorsed the back of their promissory note to Chase before they gave it to Chase? No one? You did? Pardon?
When I get a check from my employer and I cash it.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the note that you signed with the bank to get your mortgage or to get your house paid for. How many people endorsed that puppy on the back when they gave it to the bank? Answer is no one in this room. Guess what? The bank couldn't go get money. So the deal fell through, right? It fell through. You didn't get your house?
No, they...
Oh, you did get your house? What happened? The vice president of the bank endorsed your note. Did they cash it then? Yeah. Who is responsible on your loan dollars? The bank, because they endorsed your note. They went and got your money. And it was without recourse to the bank. But they endorsed your note as the stand-in for you. Which means now the bank is your agent to repay the loan because you didn't authorize it. Which is why the bank has standing to sue you to get the property back and any unpaid amount, because the vice president of the bank is on the ticket to return your funds to your asset account because you didn't endorse the note. All this other crap in foreclosure is crap. Oh, the bank is creating fictitious documents. Who the hell cares? The vice president is liable for payment on your debt and he's got a claim. Who is the creditor on that loan now? The bank. Who the hell are you? The debtor. If you would have endorsed your note, who would be the creditor on that so-called loan? You would. The money would flow through Chase, go out to the seller, and it's a done deal. You get your deed. Because you're responsible for what you took out of your own account. And if you don't want to return it to your own account, that's your business, not theirs. You were one signature away from being a homeowner without a mortgage. Forget all this patriot crap. Because aren't you going in there to argue with these people? And if you're going to argue with these people and you're obviously the debtor, how much success are you going to have? Zip, zero, and nada. Do you understand how easy it is once you understand who you are and what you're doing in this life to get your remedy? But you better stay honorable and not use the power and authority of this knowledge to do evil. It will catch you. Now let's say you didn't endorse that note to begin with and they're foreclosing on you. What is your remedy? UCC 3501 subparen A subparen I. Show me the original charging instrument upon which the straw man is liable. What is the original instrument making him liable? The note. Do you understand why the bank never wants to produce the original note in a foreclosure case? It's your remedy. Why would they bring your remedy without your demanding it? The original note is not going to implement the bank in fraud. It's going to be prima facie evidence that you're still a debtor. If you don't face up to the thing that's causing you the problem and correct the problem, you're still proceeding under a problem. And no matter what you explain to the judge or the trustee, you're going nowhere. Because you're the debtor by the evidence that's in this case. And you haven't set it off. You want to charge the bank with fraud for lending you credit that they didn't have? That's so far off the map when you figure out what's really going on. They're not lending anybody money at all. They're not lending anyone credit. What are they doing? The bank is a gatekeeper to do what? To allow you access to your funds or not. That's all they are, is a gatekeeper. They don't deal in money. They don't deal in credit. They don't deal in loans. They either give you access to your units or they don't. They're a gatekeeper. How much fraud is in a gatekeeper? Nothing. Got to quit. Get on the mic.
Same thing with Same thing with
Somebody don't want you to speak.
it's the same thing with a vehicle purchase, right?
You got it. Because if you're going in for credit to buy the car, if you're going in for a credit card, what is a credit card? It's a line of access to your asset account, controlled by bank. That's all it is. Okay? So you applied as the applicant, didn't you? Did you ever give them an endorsement so that the funds you pull out are free and clear? Because without that, the bank giving you the credit card had to be the endorser, so that they were responsible for coming after you to fulfill their obligation to get your funds back into your account. It's all a trick. It's smoke and mirrors. But if you're a debtor and don't understand any different, that's exactly what's going on. Now, let me tell you, if you get to the level of knowing what you just heard and know now, why do you guys want to keep operating as the debtors? Why don't you start learning to go to get direct access to your damn account to begin with, and forget all these bridge keepers and gatekeepers? You see what I'm saying? Because if you're going to be in public and you're going to use the technology we're giving you here today, you're kind of like the slave that wants some privileges from the master, and you got to go to the master to get permission to get the rights that you're entitled to if you didn't keep asking the master, which is kind of like dumb. Why don't you say to the master, I'm going back and I'm going to operate my account, and with notice, do you have any reason why you need to be a gatekeeper anymore? And he's going to put you through some kind of a test to see if you're going to be, number one, competent to be doing what you're doing. And number two, he wants to know whether you're going to be a terrorist to use your new tools to destroy the democracy, for which he cannot allow you to do that, or whether you are a safe bet and you're not a terrorist, you're an honorable third party. I mean, you're an alien that isn't going to attack the democracy. And then he will permit that action. You see why we're going to the 3 circles? Because by time you find out what's going on in circle 1, isn't circle 1 the insane asylum? Isn't it the cuckoo's nest? And what you want to do is you want to get some exceptions to the policies in the cuckoo nest. Well, why don't you go to administration and say, I want to check out? And then when you check out, you got direct access. You don't have to go from permission to the cuckoo's nest every time you want to do something. So there's a higher methodology of deciding where you're going to go in your life. Then when you find out that the asset account is an account of great value, and you're going to have the opportunity to go out and help your brothers and sisters by using your account and your blessings, then you got to go to circle number 3 and say, how am I going to be able to protect this operation so it doesn't look like I'm a terrorist against the cuckoo's nest by all of their public officials that don't yet understand who I am, and what I'm doing, and that I've been given permission by higher-ups in the cuckoo nest to do what I'm doing. Otherwise, they're going to snatch you off the street and put you back in the institution. Yes.
So what constitutes like terrorism? Because I think there's kind of a fine line.
Terrorism is use of your commercial assets to oppose the policies and the politics of the democracy.
We got a ton of policies. I mean,
they do. And who does those ton of policies apply to?
They apply
inmates in the cuckoo's nest.
That's right, but if you're, I think you just have to be fine line there and operate privately completely.
Brandon, is there a fine line between being alien and being citizen? Or do you think that's kind of like black and white? You either is or you ain't. If you're the citizen, you're in the cuckoo's nest. If you're the alien, you're not a member.
I need
Where's
batteries.
that fine line?
Okay.
Question.
I need batteries.
Question. What kind of questions would they ask in a competency meeting with an agent?
Sir, do you know how to access your asset account in such a way that it's not going to disturb Chase Manhattan when you come in? Or do you know how to go out and buy a hamburger at McDonald's without getting yourself into trouble? Remember the story we told yesterday about the traffic ticket guy that went down to cash his straw man's check? Do you think he was demonstrating competency? He failed the test, didn't he? So the judge could have said, well, give me your birth certificate and your driver's license. And oh, by the way, you're not going to go down and cash your straw man's check this week, are you? And the guy is going to go, wait a minute, how am I going to buy food and gasoline at the gas station? I need to cash that check. It's the only way I can purchase things. Beep, you lose, you're incompetent. Now how do you plea to the charges? See, haven't we already implied that if you're using Federal Reserve notes, you're passing limited liability? That's not a remedy. Does that mean that you can't go to the gas station and use a Federal Reserve note? It's not what you do, it's the way you do it. Last night, did we not talk about filing a 1040 in order to do what with regard to Federal Reserve notes? To really discharge the public liability so that there was no increased public debt. Now, just because your straw man used a Federal Reserve note, is he going to hell or purgatory? Or what does he do after he uses the Federal Reserve note? Or what declaration did he make before he used it? Remember, we talked about the fact that Gordon had a limited endorsement on the back of his checks. If our friend would have taken his check into the bank from his straw man that he had gained from the wages and put the limited endorsement on the back of the check, do you think that the judge, if he knew that, would have called him in? Chances are no, because the limited endorsement does what by notice? Gordon is not receiving the benefit of limited liability through the use of Federal Reserve notes. So therefore, there is no public benefit there. But on the other hand, would Gordon set off that benefit in the background notwithstanding and discharge the public liability caused by the trace use of that? Gordon hasn't gone there yet that I know of. You see what I'm saying? This is all about whether or not you're creating this pig pen surrounding to you as you go through life, this cloud that hangs over your straw man's head, or whether you're fixing things as you go through life. This weekend, don't they have a movie out from Disney? Wreck-It Ralph. What? That's every one of you guys are Wreck-It Ralph. Every place you go in the game of life, you're screwing it up. But one day, Wreck-It Ralph woke up. Haven't seen the movie yet, but I've seen the previews. I know where it's going. Wreck-It Ralph woke up, and Wreck-It Ralph says, my whole life I've been going around destroying things. And I've decided I don't want to do that anymore. And he goes to the equivalent of the Alcoholics Anonymous meeting where we've got all of these bad guys. I don't want to be bad. I don't want to be the straw man. And at the meeting, the one guy, the monster, is going, well, just because they call you bad guy doesn't mean that you're really bad guy. And I did, Nancy. And so Wreck-It Ralph is now, by trying to be good, what is he wrecking? The whole society, because his goal is to be straw man wrecker. And he's jumped his game. And he's going to be the nice guy in everybody else's game. And it's thrown the whole game world into chaos. That's what happens when you turn around and don't be Wreck-It Ralph no more. It becomes chaos. And so what the hell is Disney trying to tell you? Stop being the straw man. Go out and do good. That's what our problem is.
I was born outside the United States, and I lost my birth certificate, and I have a U.S. passport for my parents. How do I? And I don't think I have a social security card number. Do I need to apply for one? Should I apply for one? How do I?
You've got a U.S. passport. You were born outside the United States. Did you come into the country through some entry document? Naturalization. Because if you did, your birth certificate estate account got moved to the United States through the naturalization documents. If you did not have naturalization documents, you're not a U.S. citizen resident. You may be here legally or illegally, but the account on your asset account is held with the birth country until you move it by way of applying for entry documents formally through the country that you're in. In order to get a SOCH number, you're going to have to attach it back to the birth certificate or the naturalization entry documents, because the Social Security number is going to attach to that asset account, which attaches to the birth, or the transfer of the birth account by way of the naturalization documents. To whatever extent the paperwork following where you've physically gone has not kept up with you, you're going to have to go back and make sure the paperwork corrects whatever it is so that you've got authority to apply for the Social Security number and formally be attached to that account.
So I should apply for my,
Go back to the naturalization or the entry documents, whatever got you into the United States from your former birth country. And that's a starting place. And if you've lost those documents...
I didn't really fill out anything. I just showed my passport and...
Well, if you have a passport, it had to attach to something in that account somewhere.
So maybe I filled it out in the country before I came to the United States?
You might have applied for the U.S. passport overseas through a U.S. office, yes.
So that's the actual...
That would be the records then of the transfer of your asset account to where you are. No matter where you are in the world, every one of the approved countries in the world are going here. For instance, in Mexico, they didn't have recorded birth certificates and a lot of that crap in many of the rural outlying areas until the 1970s and 80s. And they already knew that Mexico was going to be the manufacturing center for the United States. And so in order to get prepared that Mexico was going to get our jobs and start manufacturing, they had to start building up the understructure for the economy in Mexico. The roads, the water, the sewer, the electric, whatever it was. And in order to pay for that, they needed to have some assets to do that. So in the 1970s and 80s, they made a concerted effort in Mexico to get people to apply and file birth certificates if they had never done so, even on people that were born many years back, so that they could generate the accounts, so that they could borrow the money from IMF, World Bank, and everybody else to generate all the facilities that were going to be put in place so that it would support the corporations that came down there with the manufacturing jobs. We're just saying that the third world is being lifted in to the modern commercial system, if you will, by registering people, because it's that registration which has been the underpinning of the so-called economy money system. And they're very careful to be doing that so that if a nation doesn't have any people registered, they have no basis upon which now to create the funds to build up their economy, to go into production, consumerism, and everything else.
So when I applied for the U.S. passport, that's when I created a...
When they offered it to you or got it to you, most likely there's accounts there that have moved your asset account into the United States.
So now my record is up to date.
I would presume it is, yes. Have you got a Social Security number?
I never applied for one. I never went to...
Well, apply for one, and if it goes through, then you know that they've got all the documentation.
I needed a birth certificate. I didn't have it.
Yeah.
So I need to get my birth certificate.
The foreign birth certificate is not what you need in the United States to get your social number. What you need is the documentation that brought you into the country. And that should be separate and apart from the passport. Or it should have been in place prior to issuing you the passport. But it depends on what kind of passport you've got. You may not be a citizen, you may be a national.
This is my passport. I think it's a regular passport, just like anyone else.
Did your parents bring you here at what age?
They never brought me here.
So you brought yourself?
Yes.
You don't believe that you applied for Social Security?
No.
Okay. I'm going to say that how long ago did this happen?
I came in here?
Yeah.
3 years ago.
Okay. I'm going to say that's probably not exactly what you think happened. Okay. So as Jack said, go to the Social Security office and apply for one and find out what you have.
Or see what Social Security says. You know, tell them you're...
They asked for 2 documents besides your another passport, and they want a birth certificate.
Okay. So at this time, we all have a message for Brandon. So,
this is love, Brandon.
So, are you sure you want a Social Security number?
I'm sorry?
Are you sure you want a Social Security number?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I want to know that I want to access the asset account.
So the presumption is that without a number, you don't have access.
Yes.
Okay. Are you sure?
No.
Okay. So, what do you know about Social Security?
It's a benefit.
Do you want a benefit?
No.
Okay. So what do you need to do? If you want to access the asset account, but you don't want the benefits and privileges of Social Security. Is it the Social Security contract that created your estate?
No.
No. We talked about this yesterday, because I just gave you an example of how my son would access his asset.
Non-citizen national?
Well, that's his status. I don't know if that's your status.
So what should I do, or how do I acquire the asset accounts?
Who's the alien property custodian?
Secretary of State or Treasury?
Treasury. Okay, so if the Secretary of the Treasury is the alien property custodian, i.e. trustee for property and assets of aliens, who do you need to communicate with?
The head guy of the Treasury.
Okay. And what do you need to communicate to them?
That I would like to be able to access my prepaid account.
Are you going to ask pretty please?
Give them a notice.
What's the substance of your notice?
A UCC or some sort of file.
Is a UCC substance for anything? Anyone? No? It's just a notice.
So my substance is the right to access the prepaid account.
What's that?
My right.
Okay, so you got a right. So how are you accessing it? You already have the right. You said you were sending a notice. What's the substance of the notice?
I don't know. I have a right to the account, and I have the form, and I'm giving them notice that I would like to access the account, or I will be using the account.
Okay. How?
I heard someone say security agreement.
How is the Secretary of Treasury to know when an obligation comes in? How is he going to know what asset account to attribute the obligation to?
The Social Security number?
You don't have one. So,
What evidences the existence of that account?
Birth certificate.
And what authenticates your right to access whatever that
The
is?
unique identifier? The signature.
But if it's in the hands of the United States instead of the country of birth, your birth certificate is the evidence of the account. There's no Social Security number attached to it. There may be no equivalent number to a Social Security number in the country of birth. It's just the BC account. But if you came into this country appropriately and they authorized that, there's got to be a U.S. entry document that describes where your birth took place, and it's that entry document which overlays the birth certificate in the country of birth. The entry document is what the U.S. sees as the evidence of your account. If you want to authorize the attachment of a Social Security number to that account, you can authorize that to happen. What Brandon is saying is if you don't choose to do that, you don't have to authorize the attachment of the Social Security contract or relationship to that account. It's up to you.
So again, I was asking you what was the substance of your notice. How is the Secretary of Treasury to know, for one, you're the guy? How are they going to know that you're the guy who has the authority to access the asset in the account? And how are they to know when an obligation comes in, how to attribute it to that account?
Maybe to apply for some sort of number.
Oh, now you want to apply, huh? So you want another benefit and privilege.
I'm not sure.
If it's yours, why are you asking them permission to treat it in some way?
Who can help him out? Was nobody paying attention yesterday when I gave you an awesome example of how to do this without a Social Security number? See? You see why I engage these guys? Mm-hmm. They don't hear anything. Who can explain it? Go ahead. Or, I'm not necessarily sure he can explain it. He's going to give his best run at it.
Actually, I'm going to come at it from even a slightly different tack, which is...
Well, that shouldn't confuse him any.
My wife is actually coming from Indonesia. In fact, she's arriving tomorrow.
Okay.
And I've been thinking about all these, trying to determine what is the best course of action. Yesterday I was pilas puestas when I heard you mentioning the, I don't know if I should call it a certificate of nativity, but some kind of private process whereby a statement or a claim as to his nativity is established. Then the shadow of it would be revealed through some kind of UCC filing, perhaps, but not the substance. The substance itself would not be filed.
The substance is, I have the original affidavit, what I called it, affidavit of, actually I called it an affidavit of birth and claim for the life. Okay? So the substance of the document is testimony by 5 people of the child being brought into the world, having a nativity on the land without the United States in the unincorporated territory of New Mexico. Okay? It has his complete family heritage back to the 1600s. Okay? It has a claim to his body, to his DNA, to his labor. Okay? That until he's 18, the mater familias and pater familias, mom and dad, have a claim to. And at which point, at the what I called the maturity date, then the offspring, the issue, would then have the claim. Okay? So that's the substance of the instrument. The original was taken to the county recorder. The county recorder took it, copied it, made a record of it, gave me back the original. And they put their stamp on it, or actually they put a little sticker on it. Then I got a certified copy of it out. So now I've got a record with a seal recognized by anyone in the United States. And then I can get an authentication on that seal so it'll be recognized anywhere in the world. But it has all the essential information for what I need to establish for Leoncio. Right? So, does he have a claim to an estate?
Yeah. Yes.
He was born in the unincorporated territory of New Mexico. Right? So if he was born on the land in the unincorporated territory of New Mexico, what does that make him?
An alien.
An alien to the democracy.
To the democracy, yes.
To the corporation, he's definitely an alien. But in relationship to the republic, what is he?
He is a... I can't remember the term. You've used it several times.
In relationship to the republic, like if I were standing in the republic, what would I call him? A citizen. Or a national of New Mexico. He'd be a citizen of the United States of America, the republic, and he would be a national of the nation of New Mexico. Okay? So that's how the republic would see him. From the democracy standpoint, he would be what they call a non-citizen national.
Non-citizen.
Okay? So, to claim his asset, the process that I explained, right, was that he would send a notice to the Secretary of the Treasury. With that notice would be the certified copy of his affidavit of birth, claim for the life. And so, based on that affidavit of birth, claim for the life, who has a claim to the assets, to the estate?
You do.
Well, I do for right now.
For right now.
When he's 18, who has a claim to it?
And of course, Leoncio.
He does.
Yeah.
So he's giving notice that you're holding my property. You're holding my estate. I have a claim to it. I had the first claim to it. Because there is no birth certificate where the claim was put into a trust and he was made trustee. So Leoncio has first claim to that asset. But he's going to let the trustee hold on to it. And what he's going to do is he's going to send with that notice an instrument that will allow the trustee to set off anything that Leoncio sends to him and limit the amount on the instrument to be set off with the instrument. He may even include a notice that, and here's an instrument for your fee for providing this service to me. Right? So he's going to say, here's an instrument that for the next 10 years I want you to administer any obligations that come in and set them off against this instrument. Now remember what I said yesterday, or remember what Jack said yesterday. How much of that asset do you get access to, and how much does the state get access to?
9/10 and 1/10.
So you get access to 1/10. The state gets access to 9/10. How much does Leoncio have access to?
100%.
100%. 10/10. Right? So if he wrote an instrument for, let's say, $10 million, and it was a form of an indenture, a bond, so to speak, so that the treasurer would be obligated through that instrument that if any other instruments came in for set-off, that the bond itself is binding the treasurer to use the asset that Leoncio is authorizing him to use, because the treasurer, the Secretary of Treasury, has no claim, because there was never a claim by the state to Leoncio's asset or to his estate. Now, I'm not saying you're necessarily in the same position, because like Jack said, there was an entry document, probably a certificate of naturalization. Do you have a certificate of naturalization? Then where did you buy the passport? Okay, so it's a passport for your previous country?
No, it's a U.S. passport.
You don't get a U.S. passport unless you are a national or a citizen.
Yeah, you'd have to go to
What country are you from? Are you from Guam or something? Israel. Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you have dual citizenship? Right?
Yes.
Okay, well, typically, you would have had to make some kind of a declaration to get a U.S. passport. So had you never lived in the United States before you got your U.S. passport? What's that? No, you had never lived in the United States before you got the U.S. passport. Okay. And you're saying you have no certificate of naturalization? Not that you can recall. This is 3 years ago. Not that long ago. It would have been a big certificate like this, and it would have had your picture on it. It would have been like, 8.5 by 11. It would have had your picture on it. And it would have had to go through some kind of U.S. authority. Do you remember anything like that?
I'm assuming that maybe it was at the embassy.
Okay, were you there under amnesty or something?
What does that mean?
Were you seeking protection of the United States?
No.
Okay. Okay, so at the embassy, they would have had to put you through a process to get that passport.
Sure.
Okay. What was the process?
I'm assuming that maybe because I kept renewing the passport since a young age, so maybe.
You said this was 3 years ago.
That I renewed the latest one.
So when did you get your first U.S. passport?
I guess when I was a kid.
You guess? Okay. So who got you that passport?
My
And
parents.
you had never been to the United States? You're sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Okay. Are you an intelligence agent? Are you?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Are you positive?
100%.
Okay. Maybe when you were a child you became one? Because right now what you're describing to me is you are here illegally, and that what you're carrying is a false document. Because only people who are entitled to a U.S. passport are citizens and nationals. So at some point, you declared your allegiance to the United States. Right? You don't know when. You said you were a child when you first got your U.S. passport. And your parents, do they have U.S. citizenship?
Yes.
Did they have U.S. citizenship before you were born?
Yes.
So you were born to U.S. citizens.
Sure.
That's how, so you are a U.S. citizen. Okay? So your original passport, your original passport comes out by virtue of you were born to 2 U.S. citizens. It doesn't matter that they're dual citizens and that they're also Israeli citizens. Okay? There's a treaty between Israel and the United States. And it's one of the few countries that the United States recognizes dual citizenship with. Okay? So because your parents had this dual citizenship, they were able to get you an Israeli passport and a U.S. passport. Okay? So you are a U.S. citizen. Now, there may be a Social Security number. Let me ask you this. Have your parents ever filed anything with the IRS to your knowledge?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. So chances are they're not seeking a benefit and privilege of a dependent, so they probably didn't apply for you to have a tax ID in the United States. Okay? So you are a citizen, but you don't have a tax ID. Okay? You're not a state national because you weren't born on the land in the United States. You were born in a foreign nation to U.S. citizens, which are corporate entities. They're strawmen. So you're a special class of, basically your strawman is just like everyone else's strawman in here. It just doesn't have a Social Security number. So it doesn't have the benefits and privileges of Social Security. Okay? Yeah, too bad, huh? So the estate, and I'm sure through that treaty, that there was, when your parents got your original passport, they brought in some documents, probably your passport. They probably made a declaration of their U.S. citizenship. So your estate is there. You have a claim to it. You just haven't made your claim or set yourself up in a way to be able to send claims through the Treasury. You haven't attached, like Jack said, the Social Security account to the asset. Okay. Do you have a bank account in the United States?
Yes.
When you got that bank account, when they asked you for your Social Security number, did you just put zeros?
I said I don't have one.
Okay. So did they put zeros on the application?
I assume.
Okay. So do you have a driver's license?
Not from the States.
Not from the United States? So you have an Israeli driver's license?
Yes.
Okay. And so do you have an international driving permit that goes along with that? Okay. No? Yes, no? You should
It's
have...
It's considered international, that's why.
The Israeli driver's license is international?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an international driver's license?
Yes.
Or is it an Israeli driver's license?
It's an Israeli license, but they made it international.
Meaning, when you get pulled over, the cops don't ask you for your international driving permit. Okay.
Never happened. I hope it doesn't happen.
Well, they're real easy to get. You just go down to the State Department, contact State Department, and they'll just send it to you. It's that easy. You know, it's nothing special. You have to have your Israeli driver's license to go with it. It's just basically they're going to say, do you have an Israeli driver's license? You go, yep, here's a copy of it. And you go, okay, here's your permit. It's that easy. I don't even think you have to pay for it. Okay. So chances are there's no Social Security number. That's the evidence in the public record because you've created an account whereby there's no Social Security number attached to it. Okay? So you heard the example I was giving of how my son would claim his asset, right? So what do you think you would do?
Send him a notice with a claim.
And? Are you planning on using the Secretary of Treasury as a fiduciary to set off debt?
And a bond.
And a bond. And that bond, what? What's going to allow the treasurer to know? How are you going to reference that bond when you use a set-off instrument against a debt?
My signature on it.
Okay, that's one way. A registered mail number is a unique commercial identifier. And if you assign that registered mail number as your bond number, and in your notice you're telling the Secretary of Treasury, when I send in obligations to be set off, the number I will use to reference the asset account shall be the registered mail number / bond number, and then you'd put the bond number, RE 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 US. Okay? So in your account number there will be 4 letters, 2 at the beginning, 2 at the end. It will start with an R, it will end with a US, and it will have 9 numbers in between those letters. That now is your set-off account number. Now, you'll only be able to set off debt up to the value of the instrument. What I would suggest is that you make clear, maybe, that there will be also a compensation to the United States. Actually, as a U.S., because you're not taking benefits and privileges, so I don't know if they have a claim to the 9/10 of your estate. So you may give them an indication that 25% of this bond is for use by the United States for the services that are being provided by the Secretary of Treasury. You can make it 50% of the bond, you can make it 25% of the bond, whatever you choose. You can make it 90% of the bond and be just like everyone else. But you're not getting a benefit. You're not asking for benefits and privileges of unemployment, Social Security. You're not asking for any of those. So the 9/10 of that doesn't necessarily go for that. But take into consideration that there are benefits and privileges. For instance, do you have water at your house? You got sewage at your house? Okay. If you call the police, do they show up? If you call the fire department, will they show up? Okay. So you're going to want to earmark probably a good percentage of that money for all those services you are provided. All those benefits that by virtue of being in the United States you receive. So it's kind of like a friendly, hey, how are you? Right? And you're not only establishing a method and a number for you to use on your set-off instruments, you're also establishing a relationship by which you've authorized the use of that asset account for setting off any benefits and privileges you do receive, even though Social Security isn't one of them.
So just that I'm clear, is it the registration number is what? Is when I mail it to them? It's
No. Have you ever sent registered mail? Okay. So you go down to the post office and you request a registered mail sticker. And the form 4801? 4201? What's the registered mail form? 3801. 3801. 3811 is a certified mail. So you're going to request a form 3801, which is a little white slip of paper, which you're going to have to, it's 3806? 3806. Okay, 3806. So you're going to request a form 3806 and a registered mail sticker. You're going to take those home with you, because then you're going to use that registered mail number and put it on your bond and put it in your notice. And then you're going to prepare an envelope and you're going to put that registered mail sticker right in the middle at the top of the envelope. Okay? In the middle at the top of the envelope. So it's on the face of the envelope, right? So that number, because it's a unique identifier in commerce, isn't repeated anywhere else. So you know you've got a unique number for your account. Okay? And the 3806, it's going to get stamped by the post office, and you're going to get back the original, and they're going to take the copy and stick it with the mail. And this piece of mail is going to go from locked safe to armored car to bags, locked bags, all the way to the Secretary of Treasury. They take very serious and very good care of registered mail.
And the claim and the notice in the bond, does it have to be specific, like a template, or just...
No, it has to have certain substance to it. When you're operating from the private, there is no set form. It's all about substance. So substantially, what are you giving notice of? And substantially, what are you communicating?
My claim.
Yeah, so it can have whatever form is necessary. Same with the bond. As long as the bond has the substance of what's necessary to make it a bond, meaning it's got some kind of order in it, it's referencing an asset, okay? It's got a unique identifier, it's got a maturity date, so there's certain elements that a bond must have. And however you put that together is fine, but it must have the substance of a bond. Okay?
So it could just be, hey, how are you? I would like to, from now on...
That's the notice. Yeah, the notice is the, hey, how are you? Attached here to, enclosed herewith is a bond by which I will be using for setting off any debt obligations. When you receive a debt obligation that references that bond number, which is unique, right? That you are to take that obligation and set it off dollar for dollar with the asset account, which is the asset behind the bond. Remember, the substance of a bond, you must reference an asset. Okay? A bond is saying, there's an asset. I'm bonding the asset. And with the bond is an indenture, an order, so to speak, a bond order, telling the holder in due course what to do with the bond. Okay?
It's kind of like a chess player. Like a
What do you mean?
Like the
pawn?
A pawn, yes. Pawn.
Are you telling me the Secretary of Treasury is your pawn?
No, I'm saying the actual bond is like a pawn. I'm telling him that from now on I'm going to be using it for setting up obligations.
I would say it's like an account. Because just like you have a checking account, right? You went and opened a bank account, right? Mm-hmm. You have the same kind of an agreement with the bank, telling them, which basically in substance, when I write out instruments that reference this account number, you are to set off dollar for dollar the obligation that this instrument represents. You see? Mm-hmm. So what you did, but when you went to the bank, you deposited Federal Reserve notes, right? So that's the asset, which it's really not an asset, but in the public it is. Okay? So they're holding that asset, right? And there's a bond. The bond is the agreement between you and the bank. So that's what your bond to the Secretary of Treasury, it's the agreement between you and the Secretary of Treasury on what to do when they receive your checks. Okay? So the bond between you and the bank is that when they receive checks written by you on that account, that they're going to pay the account as long as there's a balance in the account, right? So the bond between you and the Secretary of Treasury are, whenever my checks come in, which are your set-off instruments, whether they're promissory notes, whether they're money orders,
like an electrical bill,
whether it's just something endorsed. You know, Jack was showing you yesterday an endorsed 1040, right? But he showed in the endorsement there was a signature and then a unique identifier, right? Which was what we call the set-off account number, which is the Social Security with no dashes. So if you were going to endorse something, and you would include that unique identifier, which is that registered mail number. So you would do your signature and then RE123456789 US. Or RA. It always begins with an R, but the letters are RA, RE, RR.
So now, just for example, I would get a bill, I would just endorse it with the registration number, and I could just...
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend you do it with the electric bill. You can give it a try.
I'm just saying, for example, a hospital
bill. If the Secretary of Treasury doesn't act on it quick, you're going to lose your lights.
So a hospital bill.
Okay, yeah, hospital bill. You can do it with a hospital bill.
Just flip it over, sign it.
You can do that. Now, you're new to this, aren't you? So, those of you who are more experienced in the room, would you just endorse it and send it into the Treasury? No. What would you do?
There's a major process.
Danny says there's a major process behind it. We're going to discuss that process today. In fact, we talk about 3 different processes. And if I were dealing with a medical bill, I would do the full 3 processes. Process A, Process B, and Process C. But now you know, when we start talking about what you endorse and the instruments you write, you know exactly how you're going to do your instruments and endorsements, don't you?
I wouldn't know what to write them exactly on the paper, but...
No, we'll show you examples of a process. And again, don't get attached to the process. It's about the substance in private contract. So don't think that Brandon invented the magical form and that it's the only way to get your remedy. Brandon, please give me the form. It's the substance. It's the substance. It could be so simple. What we're showing you isn't going to be that simple because of the specific scenario that it was based on. But it could be simple. Okay? I really got to pee. Can we take a break? Okay.
Thank you.
Hold on. Bob has something. Go ahead, Bob.
Brandon, I was just wondering, this scenario, would it be helpful if he perhaps created a letter of authorization authorizing Timmy to go to Israel and get that asset account and bring it here then, or is it necessary?
He doesn't have to do that. He's got dual citizenship.
Gotcha.
So the treaty, remember I told you there's a treaty between Israel and the United States. That treaty is that the assets shared. You see what I'm saying? That's why his parents, who were already U.S. citizens, because they had dual citizenship, when he was born, anyone born to a U.S. citizen is a what? Automatically gets the status of a U.S. citizen. So he was born a U.S. citizen. They didn't have to apply for anything. He was born one. So there was already a split asset. Because when he was born, not only was he a U.S. citizen, he was an Israeli citizen. See, that's a unique thing between Israel and the United States.
Brandon, in the case of my parents, they have... Right here.
Okay.
In the case of my parents, they were born in Guyana and Suriname. And so they do have Social Security numbers, but they're not citizens here.
They're residents?
Yeah. So basically they would do the same process, just get the particular documents that...
but you're a citizen because you were born here?
Yes.
Yeah. And you have a Social Security number because they applied for one for you, because they filed taxes because they had Social Security numbers, yes. And they wanted you as an exemption. So they wanted the benefit and privilege of being able to claim you. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So... on dealing with the, instead of again, he's talking about the birth certificate and all that kind of stuff. So basically, we just need to get their particular documents that they use to get into the country.
For what? Oh, you want to set up asset accounts for them?
For them. Yeah.
Again, you could, but they have the Social Security number.
Okay, so it's not necessary.
So the Social Security number is already attached to their asset account.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Return at 10:20.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hi, this is Bezel Bay, and today you'll be enjoying Wtdta Radio, where we'll be exploring the world of accounting, current expected credit loss provisions, estate planning, and tax planning, just to name a few. Don't forget, in the evening session, we'll be definitely going into civics and syntactical trust. So remember, if you listen long enough, you will definitely learn something. Peace and love, family. Peace and love.